Is it Necropotence? I've heard it's called Necropotence, but Necropotence just sounds so much cooler, so I'm going to call it Necropotence.
His primary thing is he needs to be able to stop Necro from getting into play. As long as he can keep Bueller down to 1 card a turn, he'll be able to control the flow of the game.
Nothing's as powerful as much as potent, so he went to Necropotence, one of the most powerful cards ever printed.
It's a black for an enchantment. It says skip your draw step, so you know you're in for a ride already.
I can't remember if this was a joke article or if this was like the Ice Age review that Necropotence was voted the worst card on Ice Age.
You know, it was not the worst card. We gave it a 2-star rating, and I don't remember why that was.
Did you know? Necropotence, also referred to as Necro, is one of the most powerful cards the game has ever seen. Necropotence is unequivocally a game changer, yet it is common to see new players misunderstand why the card is even good. Well, they're not alone. Back in 1995, Necropotence was released in Ice Age and was immediately viewed as a very bad card. The card's initial reception was so poor that the popular gaming magazine Inquest gave Necropotence its lowest possible rating, 1 out of 5 stars. Despite being left in the dark for several months, Necropotence finally saw the light of day when it reached the top 8 of the very first Pro Tour and changed the game forever. For the uninitiated, Necropotence is an enchantment for 3 black mana that reads, skip your draw step. Whenever you discard a card, exile that card from your graveyard. Pay 1 life, exile the top card of your library face down. Put that card into your hand at the beginning of your next end step. The reason why this card is so powerful is because you essentially get to draw 1 card for 1 life. Necropotence isn't only known for its broken abilities, it is also remembered for its art. Thanks to Mark Tadin's terrifying depiction of a skeletal overlord casting a spell, players from Magic's early days called the card the Skull. Unfortunately, there is no story behind the character on Necro's artwork. All we know is that it is some powerful lich from the plane of Dominaria. Ever since Necropotence completely dominated Standard, members of R&D would occasionally revisit the old days by recreating a new card based off the abusive enchantment. Griselbrand was one such card. This infamous legendary demon from Avacyn Restored was the first time an effect similar to Necropotence was attached to a creature. Ironically, the 7/7 flying demon that can draw you a fresh hand of 7 cards for 7 life costs 8 mana to cast. According to Mark Rosewater, Magic's head designer, the 8 casting cost rather than 7 bothered many players as it was the biggest complaint out of Avacyn Restored. It was such a big issue that Mark Rosewater used Griselbrand's asymmetrical attributes as a prime example for lesson number 2, Aesthetics Matter, at his 20 Years 20 Lessons Learned presentation at the Game Developers Conference. Whatever the mana cost should have been, it didn't matter as players still managed to find several ways to cheat the demon into play. And even at 8, Griselbrand was still a great general or tutor target in Commander. Unfortunately, the evil demon became too good and was banned in Commander 1 month after his release. Another card that had its design based off Necropotence was Yawgmoth's Bargain. This card, which was solely designed by Mark Rosewater, was originally intended to be a fixed version of Necro. In order to make it more balanced, Mark doubled the casting cost of the card and forced players to draw cards immediately rather than at the end of their turn. To Mark's dismay, his attempt at fixing Necropotence didn't create a fairer card. It actually ended up being a more busted version. As soon as Yawgmoth's Bargain was printed in Urza's Destiny, players started tinkering with the new enchantment and almost breaking Standard in the process. This more powerful version of Necropotence didn't just hit its mark in Standard, the card was also played in all other formats. What was the mistake? Mark admitted that his blunder was ignoring the restriction on Necropotence that says, cards drawn go to player's hand at the end of that player's turn. Regrettably, after seeing the card in action, he instantly knew why paying life for cards only at the end of the player's turn was vital to the original enchantment's design. To this day, Yawgmoth's Bargain has received more card restrictions and bannings than Necropotence, and arguably makes it the more powerful card drawing enchantment. As one of the most powerful cards that has ever been printed, Necropotence was appropriately included in From the Vault Exiled. With new art by Dave Kendall, Necropotence was finally reprinted in the modern card frame and came in foil. However, this was not the first foiling of Necropotence, as the enchantment was included in a supplemental set called Deckmasters. Released in 2001, Deckmasters came with two 60-card decks, one built by the creator of the game, Richard Garfield, and another by one of the greatest players, John Finkel. Deckmasters also featured a few foils, with one of them being Necropotence. This would be the last time Necropotence would get printed with its original art. Luckily, Mark Tadine got one more opportunity by illustrating art for the unhinged card, Necropotence. This parody on the iconic enchantment is almost as broken as the original, but instead of skipping your draw step, you actually skip your untap step. A much fairer compromise. Many of Magic's earliest players believe Necro's slow start was due to the ubiquity of Black Vice in Standard. For 1 mana of any color, this artifact was a great 4-of in almost every deck, as it can potentially put a clock on your opponent as early as turn 1. With lots of control decks that revolved around attrition, punishing them for having more than 4 cards in hand for only 1 generic mana seemed like a good strategy. Unfortunately, the artifact became too efficient, so it got restricted in Standard. That's right, restrictions came before bannings. With Black Vice only as a 1-of, it finally gave way to the rise of Necropotence. In February 1996, the Pro Tour debuted. During this time, Necropotence was still regarded as a bad card, but a few players did pilot the enchantment. The tournament was divided into 2 divisions, Senior of 18+, and Junior, 17 and younger. Leon Lindbeck piloting a Necro deck made it to the top 8 of the Senior division, while Graham Tatimer won the Junior division with his version of Necropotence. From there, Necro began to see more play, and by the time summer came, the only viable decks were either Necropotence or Anti-Necropotence, coining the name Black Summer of 1996. Although Necropotence was the primary basis behind one of Standard's most iconic decks, it was never banned in the format. However, another card from Ice Age was. With Armageddon around, the community was afraid that Zurin Orb would be too powerful and synergistic. Therefore, it became the first card banned in Standard. With its first reprinting in 5th edition, Necropotence would stay in Standard for another 2 years while its supporting cards from Ice Age rotated out. Even though it was not as powerful as its earlier iterations, Necro-based decks still saw play. However, at Pro Tour Chicago in October 1997, Necropotence took first place and proved how good the skull really was. The Pro Tour champion was none other than former Magic Director of R&D and Hall of Famer Randy Buehler, piloting a Necropotence deck designed by legendary deck builder and current Magic R&D member Eric Lauer. With the format being extended, old cards from Necro's past were brought back and tested in a much wider field. This deck brought in a full set of Necropotence, plus 4 copies of Demonic Consultation to maximize the enchantment's appearance in games. And boy did it work. The deck dominated the tournament, and its results completely changed the meaning of card advantage. Necro continued its reign and legacy and extended until it was finally banned in 2000 and 2001 respectively. To this day, the only formats that allow Necropotence, but only as a 1-of, are Vintage and Commander. Thank you for watching Did You Know Magic? This video was voiced by me, the Magic Man Sam. If you'd like to know more about the things I do, then visit me at youtube.com/themagicmansam33. Also, if this is your first time watching Did You Know Magic, please subscribe to Gathering Magic. Thanks, and I hope to see you again soon.